Hi, my name's Teri O'Donnell. I'm from a small town on the east coast of Canada called Plaster Rock, New Brunswick. I have transplanted to Fort St. John, BC, which is mile 300 on the Alaska Highway. I am currently working as a receptionist at a hearing aid clinic and decided last year that I wanted to be a hearing aid practitioner. So I've gone back to school and am studying to be a hearing aid practitioner. As well, I also work at the casino here in Fort St. John. So I've kind of got a lot on my plate, but I love it. A little bit about me. I am a jack of all trades and master of none. I traveled to Japan in 2005 when I was 35 years old to teach English as a second language. I had no idea how to speak Japanese. I had never been on an airplane before. It was the first time. I left Halifax Airport and flew to Osaka, Japan on July 1st. So the hottest day it seemed to be of the year in Japan. I lived in Japan for 4 years as an English teacher. I taught English at a multimedia center, which meant that students would call in. They would book a class with either one-on-one or with 3 other students and myself. And basically all we did was spoke English with each other for an hour, half hour, however long they booked their class for. There were teachers from all over the world at the Multimedia Center. Some of my best friends are Italian and German. So they taught in English, French, German, Italian, Spanish, and I think that was it at that center that I worked at. I worked out of Osaka, but we had schools all over Japan. So it was very interesting. Students would come on. If you had a higher level group, they would give you a topic that they wanted to talk about. So these would be dentists, doctors, lawyers, businessmen who wanted to practice their English skills to make sure that they were using the right grammar. Because in Japan, grammar is backwards. We go to the store. In Japan, the store they go. So grammar is always their hardest thing. The only reason I am not still in Japan now is the company that I work for went bankrupt, or I'd probably still be living in Japan. I loved it that much. It was definitely a culture shock from a girl who came from a small town in eastern New Brunswick of approximately 1,500 people. And I went to a country of how many million and a city of how many million. So it was definitely a culture shock for me when I first went. Like I said, I knew nothing about Japanese people or the Japanese language. But it was definitely an experience that I'll cherish for the rest of my life and that I will never forget. The friends that I made while I was there, I still have quite a few of them. They're like New Year's is their big thing. For us, it's Christmas. They all out for New Year's. Like, you wouldn't believe the stuff that goes on. It's the only night of the year that the trains run 24 hours. So you get stuck at midnight in whatever city or little town you're in if you don't get to your home station by then. So, because the only way to travel in Japan is by subway. So at midnight, they stop running. So if you don't make the last train, you're stuck. So there are many nights that I have gone to what they call a hostess bar to have a few drinks and wait for the morning train, or a karaoke bar where you can go sing all night because you missed the train and they'll bring you drinks right to your room. So yeah. So karaoke bars aren't like karaoke bars in Vancouver or what you would think is a karaoke bar. It's actually a building that can be 3 to 4 stories high, and they are sectioned off in rooms. So you and your friends can go and sing from midnight until 5 a.m. when the first train starts. And they bring you whatever you want to drink. If you want pop, you can have pop. If you want a little bit of hard liquor, you can have hard liquor. Whatever your heart's desire, they will bring you right to your room, and you've got your book. So I've got tons of pictures of myself singing karaoke that will never see the light of day because my sister tells me I can't sing. So, but it was fun. Like, we had so much fun, because if you miss the last train, and you're usually with a group of people, so you just go to a karaoke bar and sing the night away or sleep. You can lay down on the benches and sleep. The people that lay on one thing that I found really interesting when I was in Japan was they hand out toilet tissue. Not toilet tissue, but Kleenexes in little packs. And the reason they hand out Kleenexes in little packs on all the streets, and it's their advertising. So any company that wants to advertise in Japan, they do tissues. You can get. So in Japan, they hand them out on the sidewalks as advertisements. And the reason they do that is because when you go to the bathroom in Japan, there is no toilet paper. So if you ever go to Japan, make sure you have a bag of tissues with you, because you will not be able to do your business without it. And the other thing that is interesting is when you go to a washroom in Japan, they're the standover ones. They're not Western style like ours, so you stand up to pee kind of thing. But if you are a Westerner and you want a Western bathroom, in any building that you go into, the last stall is always Western. It took me 2 months to figure that out. If it's a modern building. If it's an old building, you'll never find a Western style bathroom. But it's a wonderful place. I highly recommend to anyone who is a student. If you can go with the JET program or find a private school that will sponsor you as a teacher to do it. I did it in my 30s. I wished I would have done it in my 20s. I think it would have been a lot, a bigger experience maybe. But I love traveling the countryside in Japan. Cherry blossom season is the best time of the year. There are so many picnics called ohanami, which means under the cherry trees. But it's definitely an experience I'll never forget. And it's been, I miss it. I would love to go back. I remember sitting on my futon my first week in Japan, and calling my mom and dad, crying my friggin' eyes out. I had a one-way ticket. I didn't have a return ticket from Japan. And my dad said to me, put on your big girl panties, he said, because you decided to do this, and do it. So I remember going into work that night, crying my eyes out still. And there was another couple from Manitoba that were there. They came as a couple, so they at least had each other. I had no one. And they both looked at me and they said, what's wrong? And I, crying, my bride, and I said to them, I have no idea why I came to Japan. And they said, give yourself a month and see how you make out. So that's what I did. I gave myself a month, and I ended up being there for 4 years. I loved it. It just took some getting used to. I'd never been away before, other than university. I had never traveled. My sister was the traveler, not me. And I'd never been away from my parents, for any amount of time. So it was definitely a brave thing to do, I guess I could say that. But It was a wonderful experience. But I highly recommend anyone that wants to go to Japan to do it, because it's wonderful.